Good morning, welcome to another video. Today I want to talk about what happens when your friends discover that you're no longer a drinker, that you don't drink anymore. I'm Kevin O'Hara for habitsv2.com. We try to help people. All of these videos are not only about trying to help you get away from alcohol, stop drinking alcohol and cope with that, but get to the stage where you are, no matter what happens in your life, no matter what situation comes up, alcohol is just not an option anymore. That it just doesn't come into your mind as an option. You know, alcohol becomes something that you used to do in the past, but you don't even think about anymore. So this part of the journey, deciding what friends you have, and it is a choice, this makes all the difference. This can hugely impact that journey, whether you get to that stage or not. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. You know, one of the things that really solidified this for me happened maybe 6-7 years before I actually stopped drinking alcohol. So yeah, we're talking almost 20 years ago. And I foolishly got into my car and drove my car after a few drinks, and I was stopped and I was banned for a year. So I decided that I was going to not drink in that full year. I remember going into the pub and trying to still go out, and you know, even if it was for an hour or two after work, still doing that and having, I think it was my waddy. So my waddy is kind of something that you put into a pint of water. The water in Ireland tastes gross. It tastes of bleach. So you stick anything into it to take the taste away of the water, you know. And it was free. So you go in, have a meal, drink the water with this syrup in it, and then try and get on with your friends. And I wasn't welcome, you know, really. And it wasn't anything to do with me or them. It was just the fact that I had stopped drinking, that I was no longer a drinker, even though I was going into this journey, going into this year with the idea that I was going back on the alcohol after a year. All I wanted to do was to stop for a year, to get through that year without alcohol, and to prove it to myself that I could do it. But it was like trying to fit a round peg into a square hole. That was my life then. And it just didn't work out. Now, roll on a few years after that, and we moved to Spain, and it was always my intention to move to Spain. We had to do a lot of planning to get here. I had to change. I was working in forestry in Ireland, so I had to change all that about myself, about my life. And you know, really, it's. I remember one of my friends saying to me, "Who am I going to drink with now? Who am I going to go out with?" And that was basically my relationship. It was my relationship with most of my friends was based around being in the bar drinking. And you know, half of me, we moved to Spain, and beer was cheaper, wine was cheaper, and I'd no really intention of stopping drinking alcohol at that stage. But I think it was the first step, was leaving my friends. You know, a lot of people have to do that when they stop drinking alcohol. They have to make those choices. I made those choices a year before when we moved to Spain. And the reason we moved to Spain was just to have a different life, to live more healthier. Although I didn't really think about alcohol as being a part of, you know, stopping drinking alcohol as being a part of that healthy life. Go figure. But I still had it in my mind that I was going to moderate, that once we get there, it's a different frame of mind. I'll be doing a different job. I wasn't so stressed as I was running a forestry company. And once I got there, things will be different. Now, at the end of that year, things weren't different. And things just got worse because, as I said, the wine was flowing, the beer was flowing much more frequently in Spain, and it was a lot cheaper. A lot easier to do those things in Spain than it was to do them in Ireland. So there you go. And really, that living in Spain for that first year just gave me a different perspective. Like I said, I'd left all my friends behind. My social life became my family. So two sisters. One of my sisters has a few kids and their husbands, and you know, it was just it was a good time. We were all my social life, when we were going out to restaurants and just going to their houses, all my drinking was done there. But subconsciously, I was looking for another drinking den, over that year. Not at the beginning, like I said, that was all my socializing was satisfied with my family. But after a while, there's only so much that you can get from your family that you need other outside influences in your life. And that kind of brought me to start looking for other places to go. My son was coming over every 2 or 3 months. And it was really his influence or my role as a father and the way that I was thinking about that. And, there was 1 or 2 instances that really cemented it for me, especially in the closing months of 2012. That was the year before I stopped drinking. That's the year we moved to Spain. So, yeah, it is what it is. Once I finally decided that my son was more important than any friends, or that I was risking going back into my old way of thinking and my old way of doing things, and I really didn't want that, the decision to stop drinking alcohol became much clearer. So what is it that you can do? How can you work this out in your own mind? And this is something that you have to work out. I think it's a decision that you have to make really early on in this journey, because your friends can really influence how you're moving forwards. I mean, think about this, that you're in a quite vulnerable position where you're trying to change an embedded habit, embedded thinking, embedded behaviors that have been there for a long time. And it's the easiest thing in the world to go back to what you used to, rather than face into a life that you're just not used to at all. So, and your friends can be one of the biggest influences on that, and it's not that they're deliberately trying to. Some of them might, but a lot of people, just by what they're saying or what they're doing, it's an influence on a negative influence, dragging you backwards instead of pulling you forwards. You want to get to that stage in your life, as I said earlier on, where you just don't give a crap about alcohol, and then it doesn't matter what your friends say. Right? Some of your friends are going to be on your side in this journey and others won't. And you need that support. You need to have positive support in your life. I mean, most of my friends were my drinking buddies, and they were offering me no support. Luckily enough, like I said, I left them behind a year before. But it is what it is. I mean, what I was saying to you earlier on about that year when I gave up, and my friends weren't really interested in being around me when I wasn't drinking, when they were drinking, that really showed me a lot about where they stood and where I stood, and what kind of help I could expect from these people once I stopped. And I'm not saying anything about these people at all. There were certain times in my life when we went back to Ireland after a couple of years when I stopped drinking alcohol, and I was hopeful of meeting up with my friends. They're still my buddies, and I was really disappointed, not by the fact that they were disappointing me, but by the fact that they hadn't moved on. And everyone to their own, it's their life to live. A couple of my friends that I'd seen in the years afterwards, they were just shadows of their former selves, and it was really sad to see that happening to, all my friends were all workers, hard workers, and to see people that were on the dole and, just, like I said, a shadow of their former selves, that was sad to see, but there it is. One of the best tips that I can give you is to focus on the long term. I mean, choose something like a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years is my preference for those kind of hopeful outcomes in my life. I mean, they never turn out the way that that I started out with, but it is what it is. Focus on who you want to be with, where you want to be, and ask yourself: are these people that you're associating with now, are they gonna take you there? Because a lot of what you're focusing in on the long term, that will dictate what you do in the next year, or the next 6 months, or the next month, the next day. It dictates a lot about the people that you're going to be with. And like I said, the people you surround yourself with can be some of the biggest influences in your life. Now, what I suggest is that you are very selfish in the first 2 months, at least the first 2 months, the first 30, 60 days, because this is your coping phase. This is when you're acclimatizing to your new self. It's when you're dealing with the most. You're trying to sort things out the most in your life. And I think it's crucial that you avoid as many temptations as you can. There's environmental temptations, don't go to the pub, don't go to places where other people are drinking if you can, but avoid people who are, especially people who are showing a hint that they're trying to influence you to go back to the old way of thinking, right? Like I said, their intentions don't matter in this. It's what they're saying, it's how they're reacting, it's how you're receiving all this kind of stuff. So, the goal in the long term, as I said, is to get to a place where you don't give a crap about alcohol, that there's no situation in this world nothing that can happen to you where you would think of alcohol as a choice. And your friendships, unfortunately, are going to be a direct influence on those decisions. A lot of the time you see people, they will get through the first 30 days or the first 60 days, and they'll fail after that. And one of the biggest reasons why they fail is because they've allowed other people to get inside their head. And it's not that, somebody will say something to you and that will influence you directly with that one statement or two statements or the one night that you were out with them. It's the consistency of their messages. It's the consistency of not only that person, but other people around you. I'm not saying that that's just the one thing that can harm you in this journey. It's a lot of different things, but it's allowing your mind to drift in the direction that you don't want it to go. It's allowing your mind to stay focused in the drinker's identity instead of moving forwards to something else. So anyway, I'm going to leave it there for today. I hope you got something out of this video. Like I said, our goal is to try and not only get you to stop drinking alcohol, but to get you to that stage where you never want to drink alcohol again. No matter what happens in your life, alcohol is just not a choice for you. So habitsv2.com is our website. We've got a lot of different programs and courses and one-on-one coaching if you're looking for that. Take care of yourself, and I will speak to you again very soon. All right, onwards and upwards. Bye now. Just a quick addition to the end of this video. Once you get to that stage in your life where you don't give a shit about alcohol anymore, 6-7 months down the road, you've done a lot of work on yourself. A lot of the problems that you saw in the beginning, a lot of these relational issues, a lot of the environmental issues, a lot of the stuff that is going on up here in your head. And that's, let's face it, 90% of the things that happen in your life, 99% of the things that happen in your life are here, because it's not only, they say, control what you can control and everything else leave aside. But what you control most is in your head and how you respond to things. And by the time you get to that stage where you don't care about alcohol anymore, these relationship issues, these relationships with your friends, the friendships, a lot of that stuff will have sorted itself out. So don't sweat too much about that. Like I said, be very selfish in the beginning. Look after yourself. Give yourself the time to acclimatize, to cope without the alcohol. It's a tough time as it is without you adding more pressure onto it. So give yourself that time in the beginning. And like I said, the more you go into this, the more you will see each individual relationship, because that's what we're talking about here. We're not talking about friendships in general. We're talking about individual friendships, your friendship with this person or your friendship with that person. And those, the dynamics of those relationships will sort themselves out as you sort yourself out. So don't worry about it. So I just wanted to leave you with that. Take care. Onwards and upwards. Bye. I'm going to miss these horses when we leave. I just wanted to add something else as well. This is your choice. Remember that is always your choice, whether to be around these people or not, to choose the friends that you have or not. I'm not saying it's an easy choice. These choices are going to be some of the most difficult choices that you make with friendships. I mean, the more I've got into this journey, the more I realize how important relationships are in life, and friendships are kind of near the top of that. My family for me would be at the top, and then my friendships would be next down that thing. So we need friendships, but they are choices. Like I said, the choices will dictate themselves a lot later on. But if you don't make those choices early, if you refuse to make the tough choices, at least in the short term, at least to say to yourself, well, look, this is something that I'm going to do now for the next month or 2 months or 3 months, then you're asking for trouble. And I think it's just one of those things that will kind of will bite you later on. It's in those early days that you don't want that too much of a heavy influence from people. The people in your life are definitely going to be the biggest influence if you allow them to be. But as I said, it's a choice. So I'm going to end it there. Definitely. Take care. Bye.